Hey man, Shane here. I think Jeremy Ethier may have called me out. Here's the clip.
What is the fastest way to gain 20 pounds of muscle naturally? And at the end of this video, I'm gonna give you a step-by-step plan that combines everything into one simple system. But before we talk about how to do it, we need to clear something up that almost nobody online is honest about: how long this is actually gonna take. Because you'll see fitness coaches everywhere promising 20 pounds of muscle in 3 months. With special sauce? Sure, but naturally, muscle just doesn't work like that. With proper training and nutrition, it takes at least a year to put on that amount of muscle. And then every year after that, you're gained slow by about half.
You might wonder who these mysterious shadowy figures are who are telling skinny guys that they can gain 20 pounds of muscle in just a few months. And that's me. I'm the guy who's saying that. It could be that other guys are saying it too, but if you Google this specific claim, then the first result that pops up is me. This is a photo of me gaining 25 pounds in 3 months. The second image here is a client of mine. And if you search for how long it takes a skinny guy to gain 20 pounds of muscle, I get this AI answer here, and it just references me over and over again, explaining how I say that the typical skinny guy can gain 20 pounds of muscle in somewhere between 3 to 6 months, usually. I don't know if Jeremy was thinking of me specifically when he said that. It could just be a coincidence that the wig he's wearing looks exactly like the haircut I used to have back when I gained 20 pounds in 3 months. But there is a little bit of a backstory here. A few years ago, Jeremy emailed me about an article I'd written in which I say that most of his muscle building advice is pretty good, but that he's weaving in these little fat loss tricks that will make it harder for skinny guys to gain weight when they're trying to bulk up. It's a very common thing to do. Most people associate healthy eating with a diet that causes weight loss. And that makes sense. Most people are overweight, so if they can find a way to eat in a way that encourages weight loss, then that's healthier for them. With skinny guys, that isn't the case. Skinny guys need to find a way to healthfully eat more calories. So when you're mixing in a bunch of these little weight loss tricks into your bulking advice, then it makes it a lot harder for skinny guys to bulk up successfully. It slows down the rate of weight gain, and sometimes it prevents them from gaining any weight at all. Before that, we had spoken about how he was using my art in his articles and videos. It's totally fine to use my art in articles and videos, but Jeremy was doing it in a way that made it seem as if he was the one who was creating the art, and his audience is much larger than mine, so that was creating the problem where it seemed like I was the one who was copying him. We spoke about that and he stopped doing it. He started tracing my art instead, which wasn't really an improvement, so we spoke about that also, and he also stopped tracing my art. He generates his graphics with AI now, it looks like, and that's a whole other can of worms, but it's not my can of worms. As far as I'm concerned, we're on perfectly good terms. Plus, he's a natural lifter who promotes a healthy lifestyle, and he's tremendously successful with it, so I think he's having an incredibly positive impact on the fitness industry. I admire that. But we do disagree on this one thing. He thinks my position is dishonest, which I find insulting. I think his position is incorrect, and I'm confident that I can prove it to you using the same study that he references, which disproves his point, the same graph that he uses, which doesn't apply to skinny guys, and the same expert that he brought on, who I've also spoken with. There's another type of evidence too, kind of. I gained 20 pounds in 3 months myself, twice. The first time, I went from 130 pounds to 150 pounds in 3 months, and all of my gains appeared to be lean. The second time, I went from 150 pounds to 175 pounds in 3 months, and about 20 of those pounds seemed to be lean. My skinny roommate was bulking with me during that second bulk, and he also gained over 20 pounds of muscle as far as we can tell. We weren't doing anything that crazy either. We were both graphic designers, and we had zero athleticism, and we were lifting by ourselves in a regular gym. We weren't tracking our calories. During that first bulk, I wasn't even using supplements. I'm confident that if we had known what we were doing, we could have done substantially better. And we have a bunch of clients who have done it too. I think it's more realistic for the average skinny guy to expect to gain 20 pounds of muscle in 6 months, but it's actually pretty common to see a guy cross that 20-pound threshold after about 3 or 4 months. If you watch Jeremy's video again, you'll notice something strange. His video is titled "The Fastest Way to Gain 20 Pounds of Muscle," and he shows 4 examples of guys gaining 20 pounds of muscle. but all 4 of those examples are AI generated. They aren't real people. He also shows his own transformation, but he doesn't mention how much time has passed between the photos, and it looks like several years. I'm sure he does have client examples, but for whatever reason he only showed AI generated ones. That leaves us in a weird situation where I have more examples of my classic bulking methods helping skinny guys gain 20 pounds in 6 months than he does of his methods helping anyone gain 20 pounds in any time frame. However, there's a problem. Jeremy has defended himself against those examples by saying they're dishonest, that we must have been secretly abusing steroids. It's a baseless claim. He doesn't provide any evidence whatsoever. He doesn't even explain why he thinks that. But it still puts me in a rough spot because why would you trust me over him? So let's put those examples aside and let's go through his argument piece by piece in a way that you can independently verify for yourself. Jeremy brought on Dr. Eric Helms to talk about how quickly we should gain weight while bulking, which is great. Dr. Eric Helms is the foremost expert on this topic, and I'm a fan of his research too, which is a boon because I've also spoken with him, and I think there's been a misunderstanding. Eric Helms starts by bringing up the Rozenek study, a famous study where the researchers gave the participants giant mass gainer shakes with 2,000 extra calories in them, tons of protein, tons of carbs. And the participants gained 8 pounds of muscle in 8 weeks while losing a little bit of fat. On average. Those are all the results pooled together and averaged out. Jeremy says you'd be lucky to gain 20 pounds of muscle in a year. And in a sense, that's correct. 20 pounds is a lot of muscle. No matter how long it takes you to gain that much muscle, that's still an incredible win. That's enough to transform your physique. He's right when he says that. What's weird is that he thinks that it's impossible for guys to build muscle faster, especially when there's an example right here in front of him. In this study, everyday guys gained 8 pounds of muscle in 8 weeks, naturally, leanly, while losing a little bit of fat. That's radically faster than he said was possible, but in this context, he doesn't seem suspicious of it. Also, these are typical guys in their 20s. They weigh about 170 pounds. They aren't skinny. These aren't the sorts of people you'd expect to benefit from aggressive bulking. I'm 4 inches taller than average, and I started at 130 pounds. That's 40 pounds of lean mass behind these guys. I'll cover this a little bit more in the next section. Also, this study isn't an outlier. Most muscle building studies aren't designed to help skinny guys gain as much muscle as possible. Most of them aren't combining hypertrophy training with an aggressive bulking diet. I don't think there's a single one that specifically looks at skinny guys. But if we look at regular people, we actually do tend to see pretty fast rates of muscle growth. In this study by Hartman, guys gained 9 pounds of muscle and lost 2 pounds of fat during their first 12 weeks of lifting weights and drinking more milk. That was the average rate of muscle growth in the study. This one guy drinking soy milk gained 17 pounds of muscle in 12 weeks. In a study by Tarnopolsky, guys gained 9 pounds of muscle during their first 8 weeks of working out and drinking weight gainer shakes, very similar to Rozenek. In a study by Willoughby, guys gained 12 pounds of muscle during their first 10 weeks of weight training and supplementing with protein. These aren't weird fringe studies either. These are researchers that Eric Helms has referenced before when making his arguments, so I imagine he believes them to be credible. They aren't using fancy methods either. These guys are lifting weights and getting into big calorie surpluses by drinking milk, soy milk, protein shakes, and mass gainers. I would argue that these studies aren't even fully optimized for muscle growth. Slip some creatine into their milk and you would expect them to gain an extra few pounds of muscle, on average. Even if we don't do that though, and even if we assume the same rate of diminishing returns that Jeremy does, we would expect these guys to gain their first 20 pounds of muscle within 5 to 7 months, which is twice as fast as Jeremy says is physically possible for an honest, natural lifter. These are typical guys though, and I want to look specifically at skinny guys. Skinny guys are the ones who you would expect to benefit from bulking more aggressively. Jeremy puts up a graph like this one, showing what he believes to be realistic rates of muscle growth for the average person. The idea is that the closer you get to your genetic muscular potential, the slower you'll build muscle. It isn't based on any specific data, it's more of a folk wisdom graph. It has the feeling of one of those graphs that Lyle McDonald or Alan Aragon would have made 15 years ago. I'm not sure. The point is, 20 pounds is a nice round number that does a pretty decent job of representing how much muscle the typical guy tends to gain in the first year that he tries pretty hard to build muscle. This graph isn't designed specifically for skinny guys, and it's not designed to show you how much muscle you would gain from aggressively bulking. It's more general than that. You can imagine your typical guy, and he starts off a little bit overweight, so he spends the first few months recomping, building muscle while burning some fat. Then maybe he shifts into a lean bulk, and he doesn't quite know what he's doing, but he succeeds at building quite a lot of muscle. And he gains a little bit of fat, so he spends another 3 months cutting. And that's how he spends his first year, and that's how he gains his first 20 pounds of muscle. It's that sort of thing. It's a basic rule of thumb, and I think it's quite good for that. Skinny guys have the potential to build muscle quite a bit faster than average, and they're also the sorts of people who are the most likely to eat in the big calorie surpluses that you need to maximize muscle growth. Most guys who have worked with skinny guys know this. They've seen it. That's when you start seeing results like this. It's also pretty common for skinny guys to be chill about gaining a little bit of fat, which allows them to get results like this. I spoke with Dr. Eric Helms about this a couple of years ago, and he said that he agrees. It does seem that skinny people are able to gain muscle quite a bit faster than average, and there's supporting evidence for this in the research. But I think it would be cool to put a shape to it. My idea is that we aren't exactly breaking the graph, it's more that we're starting at a different point on the graph. This point here, at the beginning of the graph, assumes that you have a typical amount of muscle mass. Skinny people have less muscle mass than that. That's what it means to be skinny. For example, in the Rozenek study, the average participant was starting off at 170 pounds at about 15% body fat. I was starting off at 130 pounds at about 12% body fat, while also being taller than average. That puts me at least 40 pounds of muscle behind. And this is a graph with steadily diminishing returns. That means that the further back you start, the less diminished your rate of muscle growth is. That's how I was able to gain 20 pounds of muscle in 3 months. It's because I was starting off behind the starting line. I showed this graph to Dr. Eric Helms and he agreed. So far, we're on the same page. Jeremy says the key is scaling your calories based on your potential to grow.
The key is scaling your calories based on your potential to grow.
And that's true. But then they recommend this system where you gain weight at a percentage of your body weight. That means a skinny beginner who weighs 100 pounds, like my dad in his 20s, should be gaining half a pound per week, whereas a guy with more muscle and fat on his frame, weighing in at a totally average 200 pounds, should be gaining 1 pound per week. That's exactly backwards. The skinny guy, who has a greater potential to grow, is being told to limit his rate of muscle growth because he doesn't weigh very much. The very thing that gives him a greater potential to grow is being levied against him. It would be better to flip that. Let the skinny guy bulk fast enough to maximize his rate of muscle growth, and then maybe hold the other guy back a little bit, especially if he has a greater propensity for gaining fat. The reason the Helms system makes this mistake is because it assumes you have a default beginner body composition with a normal amount of muscle and a normal amount of fat. Not the average amount of fat. The average person is overweight and the system doesn't work for them either, but a normal amount of fat, maybe 15% body fat, like in the Rozenek study. If you're coming in with less muscle than that or less fat than that, then it will tell you to bulk more slowly than you need to. If you're like my dad and you're coming in at 100 pounds, then it will assume you're a 4'11" woman with a lower potential for muscle growth, and so it will tell you to bulk very slowly. I asked Dr. Eric Helms about this, and he agreed. I'll put up his statement on the screen. He told me that his recommendations aren't designed to deal with skinny guys, which creates a confusing situation. Jeremy Ethier is using AI graphics of a thin guy, but Eric Helms is giving recommendations that wouldn't work very well for that guy. Maybe he didn't know what the graphics would be. Whatever happened, I think we've solved the mystery. I think the reason Jeremy Ethier hasn't ever seen a skinny guy gain 20 pounds of muscle in under a year is because he's been limiting the rate of muscle growth by needlessly throttling the rate of weight gain. If you want to learn more about this stuff, I have a full video about how to bulk up as a skinny guy, including proper rates of weight gain. I'll put that up on the screen in a second. I also have a free bulking kit for you, including some of my favorite bulking recipes. Real bulking recipes, not weight loss recipes in disguise. And a workout routine you can follow, and a newsletter series that will teach you how to make the most of your skinny genetics. If you want my help, I'm happy to answer all the comments. We also have a full bulking program that includes real human personal support. I'll help you get results like this, or whatever works best for you specifically, based on where you're starting and what you're trying to accomplish. I'll link all of this stuff in the description. All right, that's it for now. If you liked the video, thank you so much. If you're subscribed, thank you even more. I hope to see you in the next one.